In the beginning, the analogy we always used was we wanted to build Shopify for events. The analogy has really expanded from Shopify to TikTok.
Avante Price, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to chat with you. So you are building the modern version of Eventbrite. Tell me about what Posh is doing today and how you got the idea for it.
Yeah, what Posh is doing today is a lot different than what we started out doing. Back in 2019, my co-founder Eli and I were at NYU, and we were hosting events for our friends. He was a photographer, I was a DJ, and originally we were working for other event brands, but the events that they were putting on for college kids just weren't really meeting the mark, right? They were at these rundown bars on the Lower East Side and things like that. And so Eli and I actually became friends through working a lot of these similar events together, and started Posh, not even as a software company, but as an event company, which is very ironic, right? Because that's who uses us today. But Posh at the onset was just an IRL events company for NYU and Columbia kids to have a Posh upscale experience. And through that experience, we got a lot of different experience with Eventbrite or these other products that existed at the time, right? A lot of the modern products that exist today even weren't around in 2019. And so we felt very, very confined to what existed. There was not a lot of tools to create our own brand and messaging through these products, right? It was very branded to the platform. There were not a lot of marketing tools. There were not a lot of ways to access new audiences or re-engage our current audience. And so Eli actually originally just built a software product for our own event brand. And we were just using this tool as an internal product for our own events. We used it for 2 events, and then the pandemic happened. And so we had this awesome product on our hands that actually helped us double the size of our events from 100 or 200 students to 300-400 every time, even across those 2 events. And then the COVID pandemic, right, kind of ruined our events business, but made us realize that we had something really powerful on our hands. And also that now more than ever, right, as we all know, in these kind of economic downturns, people are more open to using new products, right, than ever before. So we spent the pandemic just talking to users, right, talking to other event organizer friends, talking to everyone in the industry, talking to ticket buyers, consumers, the people that were coming to these events, right, and understanding what would a re-envisioned product look like. But in the beginning, the analogy we always used was we wanted to build Shopify for events, right? So we wanted to build an end-to-end solution for event organizers to custom brand their page, to send out marketing messages, and for their customers to be able to see who else was going. Kind of the 3 early value props. As we've expanded, right now we're at about 6 million users. We have about 50,000 organizers that have signed up. The analogy has really expanded from Shopify to TikTok.
Interesting.
And a lot of that comes from the consumer-facing approach that we're taking nowadays around aggregating all this supply and still empowering these organizers with end-to-end business solutions, but also then distributing that supply, right, in an algorithmic way to consumers, right? So depending on your tastes, you'll see a very different feed and algorithm than me or someone else, right? Maybe we have aligned tastes, right? But the idea is, why does Eventbrite suck for consumers, right? Because you go on and you see a pottery class next to a yoga event next to a rave, right? And no person under the sun usually has all 3 of those interests or whatever other interests, right, might all be conglomerated on the same page, right? For us, you open the Posh app and you see this 1-by-1 feed similar to TikTok of personally curated recommendations based on your past event attendance, where people in your contacts are going, and all these other social and demographic-based profile creators. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. How do you monetize that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We add a 10% fee on top of the ticket price the organizer determines. And what's awesome about that is that we're super aligned with the organizers, right? They don't pay a dime to use our tools. But if you charge $100 for Zoya's birthday, then people can pay $110 to go, right? What's also awesome is that we also have this entire free product where 2/3 of our events are actually free, right? We don't make any money on them. And so similar to a paperless post or a party fool, you can do the exact same thing on Posh. Why that's helpful for us is because we obviously get more users to come in, right? And we get to retain our users, but also because a lot of these paid organizations also host free events just to build up their CRM on Posh and build up their brand. And then they can use the Posh CRM to text blast those free customers for their paid events. And so we have a lot of people who've come on hosting free events and then take the next level, right? And use our tools to actually monetize and start building a business.
Does that extend to like individuals too? Like say I was hosting some sort of event for my friends and family, whatever it is, and I decide for some reason to charge them, you can still make money off of that.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the thesis. I think bringing through that TikTok analogy, obviously on the consumer side, it makes a lot of sense, right? Around giving these curated recommendations, but it also follows through on the creator side where we want to create new event businesses, right? Similar to what Airbnb did for stays and kind of sharing a bed in your home, right? And then eventually people bought homes just to Airbnb out, right? That was not really a thing before Airbnb. We want to do this exact same thing, but for the events economy, right? Where we want to basically enable you to first host Zoya's birthday party, and it might be a free RSVP event, 20, 30 people, whatever it is. But then you get this understanding through the context of the platform as well as what just happened, and you were able to bring these people together that maybe you know about something or you're able to congregate a certain demographic of people together. And because you have that special innate skill, right, you're able to actually monetize that through the Posh platform like you couldn't before. And so all the tools we build for organizers are centered around that idea of like, you don't have to know what you're doing when you first come into contact with the platform, but we want to give you both the context, the resources, the software tools, et cetera, to like build a business that would not have been possible before.
As not an event organizer, but just as, an individual, what would make me choose Posh to host a party over something like Partiful?
Yeah. If you're not trying to monetize, right, then I actually would suggest Posh only if you're trying to build a real business, right? And that doesn't have to be a monetized business, right? But say you're Nike and you want to host a Fashion Week pop-up. You would probably want to use Posh because we have a more customizable interface. We have more robust marketing tools integrated, so you can text blast an unlimited set of past consumers, right? And even sort them by different identifiers. So maybe their demographic, like their age or their gender or what they've responded to on a certain form field. You can then filter them and then send out targeted SMS campaigns afterwards, right? Which is really, really helpful for these brands, right? If you're trying to host a 30-person or less event, that's not really that professional and doesn't need to contribute to something larger, to a larger brand or something, then that's where Partyful would make more sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've seen you working, on Posh. I've seen concerts, I've seen festivals, I've seen business conferences. So it's kind of just everything's on there. Tell me, if I come to you as a, event organizer, say I'm hosting a business conference, what's the process? How are we working together? Am I just going on the app and like building out my event and that's it? All good from there? Or is there a human aspect to it?
Definitely. That's actually a really, really core pillar of a lot of our success, in my opinion, is that human-to-human connection. And obviously that's what we're all about, but we have to follow that through in how we actually operate, right? So every single person you could sign up today, you will get contacted by someone from our organizer success team, right? The same day that you sign up, right? And they'll reach out, hey, Zoya, just want to make sure that you're all good. If you have any questions, here's my email. You'll even get a phone number. If you text that phone number, it will go to a blue iMessage, right? It will not be green unless you have obviously an Android. But like the point of that is like you're texting a real person, right? It's not even like a programmatic text that you're sending out. You're sending it to a real person that's in our office in Soho who is actually going to respond, right, within minutes, maybe a couple hours at the most, right? And by following that through, we've also been able to create really, really tight relationships with our organizers where they can give us product feedback and we can iterate and create those features really quickly. If there's a bug that comes up, we're able to solve it before most people figure out that it even exists, right, et cetera. But also we're able to help provide off-platform advice too. So this organizer success team really I'd say maybe 10 to 20% of their role is helping with how do I use the product? How do I set up my event page? The other 70 or 80% is really about hey, I want to expand from New York. I've done all my events in New York. I want to go to LA, right? Do you have another organizer in your book of business that is in LA that you could connect me with to collaborate, right? Or is there a venue you can help me find? Or is there a sponsor, right? We even have someone on our team who's strictly, her entire role is just to connect organizers with sponsors for their events. And so really, the classic saying of do things that don't scale is something that we really hold true at Posh by just trying to create these personal relationships with the organizers and help them with things way beyond the software product and be more like a business concierge service to, again, help them build these businesses that would not be possible otherwise.
Amazing. And Posh is now hitting some 30 million in annualized revenue. From a purely marketing and like customer acquisition perspective, what do you think has helped you scale?
Yeah, I think following through on that same thread, it's our community team is really, really core to a lot of our growth. So we have 5 people on our community team, and a lot of what they do is fly around the country and host launch events in cities that we see a lot of natural organic growth in. So Columbus, actually, where we're talking right now, right, is a city that we've been seeing a lot of random or natural growth. I opened my phone when I came off the flight, and there were like a good amount of events, like 30 or 40 events this week in the market. And so funny enough, later this month, the team actually already had set, before I even knew anything about this, to fly out and host an event where they're inviting all the existing organizers into a room for an open bar, right, industry happy hour. And then the sales team invites any leads they can find into that same room. And 2 or 3 team members will fly out from community and sales, and they won't really sell the product. They'll just kind of try to meet these people, understand, what are they using today? What do they like? What do they dislike about it? But what you'll see naturally happen in these rooms is that the existing organizers will talk to the leads, and they'll say, hey, the leads will ask, hey, why are you on Posh? What are you getting out of it? And they'll do all the selling for us, because they'll explain how A, the product, but B, that relationship with their organizer success manager, right, has really helped them build their business like never before, right? Before it was they were emailing a support at Eventbrite or whatever email and never really getting a reply back. They didn't really have a CSM relationship in any way, right? It was very, very impersonal, right? And just the idea that we'll fly out to their city to meet them, right, says a lot of things about how we operate. And I think that feeling follows through into like their willingness to then refer us to other people, right? Bring their friends into the room for that happy hour, et cetera. But a lot of our core growth has just come from like referrals and hosting IRL events of our own for event organizers.
Yeah, that reminds me of something you said earlier, that people connect with people, not brands.
Yep.
And I think that's exactly what Posh has done. But tell me, how did you even get into entrepreneurship? There's a very fun thing I read on your LinkedIn. It starts off with DJ at 5. How did we go from DJ at 5 to now running a quite successful business?
Yeah, my dad is a DJ, so he's been a DJ since he was probably in his teens. And so when I was a kid, he definitely wanted me to DJ as soon as possible, which was 5 years old. And it got to the point where he really made me take it very seriously, right? It would be like, he'd lock me in the room and be like, you got to figure out this, like how to do this transition until we like go get dinner or go to the park or something. It was very, very like classic, like celebrity kid kind of parent trying to create this like celebrity kid kind of situation. And so it got to the point where, if I'm honest, it was getting be almost toxic, and my mom made him like stop. But before that, I got like offers for Good Morning America, like Ellen, like she always told him like, no, he's not doing this. He was very against it. But I was on the news a few times. You can check it out on like YouTube. The name was DJ A Kid, so you won't finding my actual name. But by like 7 or 8, my mom was like, he's not doing this anymore. And I kind of stopped, and I was kind of like traumatized almost from it. But obviously, as I got to high school, I found out like I was relatively antisocial in things in high school, right? I didn't have a lot of friends, but I found that like this skill I had since childhood was actually like cool to some extent, right, to people. And like I had a board, and I could bring it to these parties and like get invited to parties I wouldn't get invited to otherwise, right? And so later on, end of junior year, kind of senior year of high school, I started DJing more and kind of falling in love with it on my own, just because it was a way for me to be in these rooms and be kind of the man, for lack of a better word, right? Or like a center of attention without actually having to speak to anyone, right? Because I didn't have great social skills, but everyone still thought I was cool, and I was still part of the experience, right? Just standing behind the decks and playing music that people liked, right? And you learn a lot about reading the room too, which actually did help me improve my social skills, and like looking at people's faces when you play this song, and then transitioning genres and all these things that I think actually really did help me and follow through into my entrepreneurial journey. But yeah, fast forward, I simultaneously in high school, I was really passionate about software. I think the idea that you can build one product that can serve millions, if not billions of people, right, really struck me at like 14, 15 years old. And so I also started another software company in high school called Chorebug. It was like TaskRabbit, but you could hire only high schoolers to do the odd jobs. And so the idea was to build community, right? A lot of my friends were under 18, and I had the gig economy was just kind of starting to pop off, and no one could really be an Uber driver or DoorDash, deliverer, et cetera, because we were all under 18. So I was like, why is the gig economy not an opportunity that's available to younger people? And so me and my co-founder, Oliver, at the time, started this company, and we were just employing local high schoolers. Originally, we were just putting up signs around Starbucks around the neighborhood. High school was available for odd jobs. And this did so well that eventually we tried to start expanding to other schools. We raised a little bit of money. I even worked on it into my freshman year of college, but it didn't necessarily take off. I think there was a lot of problems with high schoolers to stick with that thesis. You had to churn out the supply side of high schoolers as soon as they graduated. So if someone graduated, they were no longer on the platform, right? So to keep finding new high schoolers. Additionally, high schoolers aren't the most reliable people. So they would show up an hour late to a job or not show up at all, right? There are all these different things that would happen that made the business break down fundamentally, but I think it was a really great learning experience kind of side by side with this kind of re-exploration of DJing that, fast forward into my freshman year of college was definitely taking more of my time than Chorebug. And I was able to actually make money in New York. I was going to NYU. It was very expensive, right? So I was able to just like play parties at whatever club or bar and make a few $100 and meet people. And so eventually it died down, but it was a great kind of foray into entrepreneurship alongside my love for music.
That makes sense of why you got into nightlife.
Yeah.
But throughout this, from DJing to starting a company when you were 14, 15 to now running Posh, is there a business lesson you've carried throughout these entrepreneurial journeys? What's one thing you always follow?
I think going back to what you were saying earlier, like it's all about the people, right? And like it sounds very cliche, but it's like the people that you start these things with, the people that you are working with, the people that are your customers and getting as close as possible to them, right? These things are all very, very important. And if you forget about like the people that are going to make the business succeed, whether it's the team members or the customers, then everything falls apart, right? And I think a lot of people think too much about the metrics, the numbers, or like the brand without connecting the brand to people's actual personal emotions or kind of inhibitions, right, or drivers. They try to build a brand that just has a cool logo but doesn't actually touch anyone, right? And that is ultimately going to break down if you don't think about the people.
Absolutely. Where do you think the events industry is headed in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see?
That's a great question. I think it's the classic idea of economic bundling and unbundling. I think right now we're in a period of unbundling where the event industry is actually getting heavily democratized, and that's what we're trying to be at the forefront of, right? Is we are trying to make it so that people aren't all going to the Taylor Swift mega concert with 50,000 people, right? Because you don't meet anyone there. You maybe go with your few friends and you don't really feel like you even connect more deeply with them. You're just kind of watching this entertainment, right? And then maybe you have something to talk about with them. But ultimately, it's not really a social experience, right? You're just consuming entertainment in a large room of people that you don't even know. What we want to create and what we see is already happening that we're only just kind of igniting more of is these smaller intimate experiences, right? The 20, 30 person mixer, maybe even a 10-person dinner, right? You look at companies like Time Left or 222, they're creating these like experiences where you can algorithmically be matched with 6 to 10 people for a dinner in these big major markets, right? Like there's not even companies just like Posh, even Partyful, right, is kind of igniting this idea of like the 10 to 30 person like RSVP event, right? Because that's way more enjoyable and more repeatable than going to this kind of expensive, lofty thing where you don't even really connect any deeper with people. And so Posh sits just a little bit upstream from a Partyful or a 222 or a Time Left, where we're empowering the like 100 to 500 person, right, event where there's a 1 or 2 person LLC or even just individuals, kind of sole proprietorship, that these people either know a lot about a topic or have a lot of pull in a certain demographic, right, and want to monetize their ability to bring people together and eventually leave their full-time job to do this full-time, just bringing the world together. And so I think over time, people are going to get more and more tired of the mega event. There's still going to be a space for that, but I think there's overall going to be an expansion of the event industry overall with this entirely new long tail that's going to be added.
Absolutely. I would have to disagree a little because
please.
I made a lot of friends at the Taylor Swift
concert. Okay,
well. But does AI come in anywhere in the events industry, you think, in the future, or even now? Are you using it at Posh?
For sure. I'd be lying to say we're not. I think obviously with the algorithm, right, we're continually trying to improve this model we've built. We also are the first platform to algorithmically tag all of our events. So for example, Eventbrite, they have a user-generated tag system where you would tag your event based on what you think it is. We use AI to take all the context of the event and then add one of hundreds of tags or multiple of hundreds of tags to each event. And that then goes back into serving our algorithm and our recommendations, as well as a few other services we're releasing over the next few months. On the organizer side, we're at the early innings, but a lot of what we're thinking about and we're going to be releasing towards the end of this year in early 26 is around this product called Medici, which is basically our AI co-pilot that will sit inside of the product and actually make suggestions to the organizer on how to optimize their event page, text blast copy to send out, when to send out a text blast in relation to their higher frequency purchase times, right? And all these other things basically being what the CSM is at Posh, right? For the organizer in a more scaled manner, and also being able to service the smaller event, right? Which maybe doesn't have as much of the CSM's time today, right? But being that personal business concierge partner based on all the data of your Posh account.
Absolutely. Is Posh something you think you're going to see through to, I don't know, an IPO? Or is it something that you would eventually want it to be acquired?
Definitely not. I think no one would be able to push forward the vision that we have in the way that we're pushing it forward. And I think our brand would ultimately be silenced for a paycheck. And that's not something that make me feel good at night. So yeah, we're going all the way. We'll see how far it goes.
And you've already made great progress, having raised, how much have you raised? $40 million? $40
million.
Yeah. $40 million, already doing $30 million in revenue. If you could give one piece of advice to all the young entrepreneurs out there, the aspiring entrepreneurs or the ones just getting their start, what would you say?
So many pieces. One piece. I think the biggest thing is just to listen to your inner voice, right? I think a lot of people, especially in the age of social media, are so preoccupied with the voices around them. What are my parents going to think? What are my friends going to think? What is the person that I follow on social media and look up to doing? And how is what I'm doing the same or different than that? And I think that the way to create something truly revolutionary and new and different is to just listen to your own intuition, right? And kind of silence all the other voices around you to really just hone in on what you believe in. And if you do that for long enough and you can really truly follow what you believe in and not what other people are doing, right, you're going to be able to create something truly magical.
Absolutely. Would 5-year-old DJ A-Kid believe what you're doing right now?
I think he'd probably think I was going to be a lot farther than I am right now.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that ambition.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.